welcome back. Episode 4 of The Houses That Horror Built. JR here with my co-host, author extraordinaire, Radar. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, man. I got a new house, so it's even spookier now. We're gonna have the spookiest channel on the webs.
You know, it's crazy. The film we're going to talk about, The Color of Your Wall, has similar colors to their living room.
Oh, geez. Uh-oh. I got a couple of ghosts walking around right now.
As long as you hear the...
Oh, geez. Next episode, I'm going to have a bunch of holes in the wall. Like, I'm trying to find the witch.
Just sit there with a hammer the whole time. So what film we're talking about, if you haven't watched, seen below, yes, His House, a 2020 film, currently streaming on Netflix.
Congratulations. You're being released as asylum seekers, not as citizens, not yet.
We are good people. This is our home.
All I can taste is the metal.
We'll get used to it.
I saw something in the dark.
How quickly you forget.
You don't wonder what it tells me. It says I should be afraid of you.
Directed by Remy Weeks. His House is written by Remy Weeks, Felicity Evans, and Tony Venables. The cast includes Wunmi Musaku as Ria Major. Now, if you don't know who she was in the HBO series Lovecraft Country, and she's also in the Loki series. So definitely watch her. She's an excellent actress. And Sopu Dirisu as Bo. So Radar, when me and you talked about doing this one, I think me and you were both kind of like anticipating what the other was going to think, because this movie is a different type of movie, especially for the horror genre, because it is very heavy on story building and visuals and cinematography and basically the whole package. But like Bol and Rial, when they're finally granted the asylum, they're given this house and they are brought to this house. Before they enter the house, they're given a basket of basically food and stuff. And I mean, what was your thoughts when they entered the house and the neighborhood they moved into?
God, it's the movie right off the bat does a perfect job of kind of like, and it's a real issue like that you see in other developed countries where it's like, yeah, we accept asylum seekers, we accept them, but it's like, we're going to do the bare minimum. You're in our country. We'll give you some crappy housing or maybe some light food, and then you're just on your own. And that's what they do with the main characters, because it just looks rough. I thought they were filming in Detroit or something. It's such a rough area. It's a rough neighborhood. The house just looks pretty darn awful. Which is, I feel like is part of the course. I feel like a lot of refugees end up in that situation. And it's an interesting take too for this movie, because most horror movies, you're not looking like, they don't bring in the viewpoint of refugees.
Right.
They're not the main characters. So it's such an interesting thing. It's like right off the bat going like, this is the uphill battle. And I think that really, really helps keep you invested in them, because it is a bit, I don't know if I would say slow burn, but it's not like nonstop. Right. With the supernatural aspect. It hits once and there's a nice pause, then it hits again. So it's very moderated. But curiosity, what do you think about their experience? Not with just like the house, but like kind of how it feels about the caseworker too, who's taking them there. How do you feel about him as well as the house he drops them off at?
Well, you kind of felt bad for him. I mean, there's a line that he continually says throughout this film. We are good people. And they're so treated like crap from like the beginning into this house. I mean, there was a leftover pizza that was sitting there with a bunch of flies on them. I mean, they basically moved him into the house and did nothing as far as cleaning the house.
Yeah.
And then when you have the front of the house, you have the mattress there, freaking couch. I mean, you could literally tell that, you know, probably, I don't know, homeless people probably
Oh
sit
yeah.
in the house or hang
Maybe
out,
some
definitely get drunk.
squatters.
Yeah, definitely squatters in there. Um, you know, when the guy tells them, I think you guys are gonna make it, you could tell it was sarcastic. I mean, the fact
Yeah.
that you just had the feeling that they were doomed from the get-go. And the ironic thing is, like, that's another thing that some of these guys were saying that worked for, for the government, was like, well, your house is bigger than ours.
Like, wow.
Yeah, like, yeah, wow. But have you seen the house they moved into? So it was like interesting because you could see their reaction and you kind of could tell how the movie's gonna play out because Bull is happy. I mean, he sits down, he starts crying. That's another thing. The sheets weren't changed on the beds, nothing. I mean, who knows who was sleeping in these houses, man?
Right.
And the fact that the government didn't care,
Just an
and
absolute crap fest.
oh god, it was just disgusting. I mean, everybody said, "Oh, if you want to just pop open the window, for, let some air this place out." I mean, how long were those windows? It's like, here's crap. We're gonna give you crap. We don't expect you to, want to stay here, and you go back to your country. I mean, that was the intent of what it seemed like the way these people were treated.
Yeah, kind of a like, oh, they could convince themselves like, oh, we did the best we could with these people, but not really.
Right.
Deep down, we know it's not true, but they're like, oh yeah, we did a good job. Pat on the backs. They just didn't make it. Just didn't make it in our country.
Oh, God. Now, to top it off, they're given this home. They're given these set of rules. You cannot work. Yeah. You're given 74 pounds. Was it a week? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it had to be a week. Yeah.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
You can't get a job.
Can't get a job.
So basically, you can't do nothing but live in this crap house and then see if you want to stay. But what is kind of what I liked about this film is, and I like to do timing when films start kicking in. I mean, I've done plenty when we do 3 Corners of Horror, but this is another one where 12 minutes into the film, now 12 good minutes of story building, character building on Bull and Riel, we start experiencing these occurrences in this house. And like you were saying, the occurrences happen they were spaced out pretty good.
Yeah.
So 2 questions I have for you. Like, what were your thoughts on these occurrences and which one freaked you out the most?
I mean, so the occurrences are done pretty well, I would say, because they are spaced out and they don't go over the top. There's not, oh, here's a bunch of little jump scares or something. It's pretty evident. And it's interesting too, because the one that gets me, I can't for some reason in my mind remember which of the main characters gets confronted by all of these ghosts and starts like,
that was Bull.
Okay, Bull. Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah, and he's just like freaking out, and it's like, well, this is it. He's a goner. Yeah. Because he's just surrounded and there's so many of them, and it's like, all right, well, that's it. And it feels so different from like the typical things you would see in a possession / a haunted movie where it's like, oh, psych, the ghost appeared, now it just disappeared. It's like he's just getting swarmed by these ghosts.
Yeah.
And granted, spoilers, he makes it out of that situation, but it's like, it felt so different. And I think that's why that one resonated with me out of all like the sort of haunts that went on. I mean, at least if we're not including like sort of the ending, like the last 10 to 15 minutes of it. But did you have a different haunt that you were like, this is the one that's sticking with me?
You know which one? The one where this is like I think the first night or possibly the second night, I'm sorry. But the one where he sticks his hand and starts pulling out the wiring. And all of a sudden the wiring turns into like a rope with seaweed on it. He continues to pull it and pull it and pull it. And see, when a movie does this, you have a tendency of looking in the back because something's in the back coming in. But as he's pulling on it, that's where like you see like a head drop on the floor,
Right.
and also he turns around and disappeared. And it was the daughter, which we'll talk about that later. But I think that scene, because not for nothing, if I'm pulling a cord out of a wall and there's seaweed coming out of it, dude, I'm stopping. I mean,
Right.
I don't even want to know what's coming out. If I got seaweed coming out of
This is the time to stop.
Yeah.
We're stopping here.
I mean, that one, if I would give, I mean, I think the thing that made these occurrences kind of intriguing was the fact the reaction by Bull and Real to these occurrences, because they had different reactions to them. It's like you had Bull's occurrences were always scary as hell and freaking them out. Like there was another one where Nijak, which was the daughter, he sees her inside the wall. He's like trying to catch her. And she's like moving across the whole wall. And he has these holes in the wall. I mean, that one there was kind of creepy. And then you get the same spot. You get Real coming in. And what does she see? These eyeballs in the same spots that, I mean, these occurrences were done very well. And I'm kind of glad they spaced them out, because a lot of films would have basically continued doing them right after the other and just basically burnt them out and wasted them. The fact that, like you said, they were spaced out. I mean, the way they were spaced out was perfect. I loved it because, it was part of the storyline they were selling.
Yeah, and it goes back to them being refugees again, because like I think a lot of other sort of these haunted house movies, the characters aren't really, their situation isn't interesting or anything. It's like, oh, it's another suburban middle class family that just moved into a house. It's like, well, just get a different one. Get another mortgage, guys. Get out of there. But with Riel and Bull, what do they got to do? Got to go back to the country where they almost got massacred? I don't think so. They can't go to the government and ask put us in a different house, because they'll just boot them out. So they're stuck with it. They are literally stuck with it, and it just makes it so much more interesting. And I think that's why they're able to do that spacing.
Let's jump on that real quick, because that's a very interesting point you brought up. Because there's a part in the film where Bull goes to talk to his caseworker, and he says there's vermin in the house. We have to go to another house. And, he's so adamant of just saying, look, we're good people. We just need another place to stay. And they're like, well, if we do that, we got to do an investigation, find out exactly why you want to leave this house. And chances are we can't give you somewhere else. You're going to have to go back. And then that's when they come visit the house, and he's just saying that, there's vermin in the house still. Right. And then what does Real do? Oh, did you tell him about the witch doctor?
Right.
which you'll talk about later, but that was interesting too. Like when you mention that, because they can't just get up and go stay in a hotel in the meantime or sell a house. They're basically they're stuck.
That's it. And I mean, like we said again, the government just does not care. So unless that house was on fire, I bet they actively on fire while they're doing the inspection. I bet they wouldn't have moved them somewhere else.
Now we talk a lot about them coming in and basically they have to adapt. They have to get accustomed to their surroundings. And Bull and Real have different experiences, and the film shows how they're actually adapting to the new environment. Now, there was a couple experiences they had, or a couple things they did throughout this film. Like, which one kind of caught your attention?
So I don't want to steal yours, but I'll do it anyways, because I'm sure this was yours. But Bull definitely is more wanting to integrate, and it really shows, because some point, I think it might be halfway through the movie, he goes into a pub and he just kind of sits there. He's kind of like looking around a bit. Everyone's watching football and stuff. And then he just kind of starts singing. I don't know the song, but he starts singing along, and everyone else starts joining in. And you could see the happiness on his face, like the pure joy, because he's gotten everyone to join in. He feels like he's part of this group, and he's assimilating into the culture. And like, that's such a pertinent moment of him, of like his character telling him that he doesn't he wants to get away from Sudan as quickly and as much as possible, even with his culture and who he is.
Yeah.
So he's willing to just take on this new culture. And I think they're in England, the UK, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's much more willing to take on that than leave it behind. And I mean, I'm sure you could speak more onto the Riel side of how she feels about the culture in England, you know. So I won't keep that from you.
No, I mean, it's obviously Riel is not adapting very well. Even Bull tells her she needs to get out, go for, you need to get out, go for a walk, do something. So I thought her experience was, and this is great writing and great storytelling, because she's given a map to find Church Street.
Right.
And as she's going to look for Church Street, she goes into like an alleyway. And the fact that the alleyway was built like a maze, I thought that was great. And she saw the kid playing soccer, didn't ask him any questions, turned around, went the other direction. When she got out of the maze, she's in the street. Once again, the kid's there playing soccer. I don't know how he did he jump the fence or, he basically is there playing soccer, but she did not ask him a question. Now, prior to this, remember, she was approached by like a resident, and she totally scoffed him away, ignored him. So as she continues walking, she sees three Africans, three Africans that were there. Well, she thought they were Africans because she starts talking in her dialect, and they're kind of like mocking her. And then she's asking, can you help me? I need to find Church Street. And they're mocking her accent. They're making fun of her to the point where she's getting frustrated. She's talking to them still in her dialect. They're asking her, what are you talking about? We speak English here. And as she's walking away, they yell, go back to Africa.
That was a rough moment.
That was a very rough moment because she scoffed at the people who don't look like her.
Right.
And then the ones she expected to help her scoffed at her and made fun of her. Because she had this whole thing where after she told them about the witch doctor thing, she's like, oh, look at them. They think they're better than us. They just give us, these scraps and stuff. And she tells Bull, and you're begging them, and she calls him a liar. I mean, I thought that was the greatest part of this film is you had the two opposing views and then the two opposing reactions to, trying to assimilate. When you mentioned the pub scene, I thought you were going to mention another scene about Bull when he goes to the clothing store.
Oh, the pub scene really, no, you go for it.
So after having an argument with Riel, Bull goes for a walk. And he ends up going to a mall. And this is something else. I mean, I love films where when you look at everything, you pick up certain things that other characters do. So he walked into the clothing store. There's a security guy drinking coffee. He puts his cup down and starts following him right off the bat.
Whoops.
So Bull goes to his section. He starts looking at shirts. And the fact that he turns around and looks at the painting of the guys with the shirts and pants, basically the whole outfit.
Right.
So he walks out the store with the whole outfit. I mean, I thought if that showed you how badly he wanted to adapt and, stay in this country, that was the perfect footage of it. Because that was just crazy. I felt bad for him. You feel bad for both, but for some reason you feel worse for Bull than you do for Riel.
Yeah, I feel like because Bull probably won't get accepted anytime soon by the culture he's trying to get accepted by. And that just feels inherently sadder. You just feel so much worse for him, as opposed to someone who's just kind of angry about the situation they're in, which is kind of what Riel has, justifiably so. Yeah. But it's not as, I guess, pathetic is the thing for Bull, of like, oh, buddy. It feels kind of like where you have like the kind of skinny, weak kid trying to fit in with the other kids during like dodgeball at recess, and he's just getting pwned, and you're like, oh God, just throw him a bone. Someone,
yeah.
Please. That's how it feels a little bit with him.
Remember the part where they sat down and ate dinner together, and he gives her silverware?
Oh yeah, yeah, and she's like, "No, I don't
Yeah,
do
it's like,
that.
oh, I could taste the metal.
I can taste the metal."
And when he says, "Oh, you'll get used to it," every time he grabbed the bite, he's like, he starts laughing and stuff. I thought that was great, man.
It's such a great dichotomy between the two of them because it's completely different reactions throughout the whole film to just everything that's thrown their way. It's so well done. It's so well written.
Yes. All right. So as they're escaping Sudan, this is the boat accident we mentioned earlier. They go on a boat. Something happens that they're all in the water, and she drowns. And when they come, when they're in the house, this is one of the things that pushes Rial to be the way, to who she is, because she misses her daughter. And Bull just wants to move on. So here's the great story arc in this movie. What were your thoughts when we found out the truth about the daughter?
Man, this movie, it's so interesting. We talked about how interesting it is a horror movie and how it kind of just does things better and differently. I think it's fantastic that like with horror, with a lot of horror movies, like, once the twist comes with the creature or the monster or something, that's the epitome. That's where you really get scared, or that's where you feel the true emotional peak of it. Not in this movie. It's finding out their past. Their past is the biggest gut punch. When you find out what they went through and what they ended up doing, it's just like, oh my Lord. It's pretty bleak up to that moment.
Yeah.
But oh geez, just when it shows what happened when, their daughter drowned, you're just like, okay, well, I feel pretty sad right about now. God, man, it's so and I don't want to spoil the ending because I'm sure we can both talk about it, but
Yeah,
and it's such a brilliant move by the writers to make the way they structured it, to make that revealing of their past really, really pay off. I mean, if you want to go into the ending right now, absolutely go for it, because it's your time to shine, baby.
No, I tell you, this reveal, I love the way they did this one, because this is where you have Bull and Rial. They're basically at odds with each other, and this was one of the most visually stunning scenes I've seen in a movie. They're sitting in the little small like coffee table eating dinner, and they're arguing. They're literally like arguing. They're disagreeing. Now they're eating together, but you see him cut into whatever he's eating, and by force, where basically the bowl is shaking and moving, and the camera pans back, and there's him by himself. The wall's totally broken. Behind him is water, and then basically it's all red. That scene was one of the most visually stunning scenes, because I've never seen that in a movie. But they get into a fight because Bull doesn't want Rial going anywhere, so he starts breaking the bolts, breaking everything to trap her in the house. So she ends up stabbing him with a screwdriver, locks him in a room, and then she escapes out of a window. Now this is a tremendous transition. She escapes out the window, but when she gets out the window, she's back in Sudan.
It's a flawless transition too. Just a brilliant way to do that. Oh my gosh.
She's in Sudan. She's in basically the school where she worked at. Yeah. And she's taken to a class, and there's all the teachers, all her friends are there together. They sit down, they start talking to her. They say, "Welcome home." And she starts talking to them, "Where's my daughter? Is she dead?" And they just stay quiet. They look at each other, they look around. And then this is where the spirit in the witch doctors call it apathy. in this film. Now, story is somebody stole in from the witch doctor, or they did something against the witch doctor, and then basically cursed them. And in order for them to pay the curse, the man had to give up his flesh, as to basically pay off this debt, this curse. So this is where this witch doctor reveals what they actually did. So as they're escaping Sudan now, she's back in the room, but when Bull comes in, pulls her out, all the teachers, all her friends are dead. They go and they're trying to get on the bus, and the bus was only allowing children on the bus. So they go grab this little girl, bring her into the bus with them, saying this is a child. They go into the bus. The girl starts screaming for her mother when she sees her mother out the window. So basically, they kidnapped a child.
Yeah, which is just super.
Which goes
super gut punch.
Which goes against the good.
There.
Well, not only that, it goes against what they were saying in the whole film. We are good people.
We're good people.
They were crappy people for what. And not only did they do that, but when they got into the accident, Bull didn't really try to save her at all. He let her drown because he was. I mean, he was more trying to save his wife, but later on in the film, you find out, that he should have tried harder. He admitted his mistake was he didn't even try to save her. So the fact that they didn't even have a daughter, and this is, and then Rhea was willing. What was she willing to do to Bull to get her daughter back?
She was ready to sell him up the river, man. Which is just, it's fantastic the different ways they deal with this kind of guilt, because that it contextualizes the whole thing. It's not sadness, it's not depression for true loss, it's guilt. Yes. And it just flips everything you've seen on its head. So Riel's dealing with this guilt by I need to repay this somehow or some way, and Bull is just trying to push it away and go, we don't need to focus on that. That's in the past. Let's get rid of that guilt.
Yeah, because there's a scene where they're sitting down in the living room on the floor.
Yeah.
And she said, we are reborn again. And the fact was that they weren't, really reborn because they're carrying this burden. No, I agree with that, definitely 100%. Bull was like, wherever we were pulled out the water, it was us. We were meant to survive. Let's just move on.
Right.
Rial's whole thing was she was using her daughter as a reason to go back to Sudan. Which, we're not good people at all.
Right. Those are two of the worst ways to handle that situation.
But Bull does the right thing where he's willing to sacrifice himself because he knows that Rial kind of hates him at this point. So he's willing to sacrifice himself. He basically cuts himself so the witch doctor could come and collect his debt. So Rial, he tells her to leave. He tells her to leave. You should go. So she actually leaves. And then she's there crying. Yeah, she actually is in the other room downstairs. And then all of a sudden, she comes back. Now the appearance of the witch doctor was freaking amazing.
Yeah, he looked sweet.
Oh my God. He looked so good. He looked menacing. And the fact he came up from the ground. I mean,
oh man.
But yeah. Guy, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just a fantastic sort of creature because it's after his skin, and that's brutal. And I was so damn surprised that they started to show the witch doctor getting in there, man. I'm like, oh wow, this movie has the cojones to do that.
He was like a whole hand in there pushing it out, and Bull screaming this whole time, oh my God, poor Bull. She's all crying in the other room, and this is another seamless transition I loved in this film too, because Bull sacrificed himself so she could get Niak back, but you see her with her hand down, you see Niak go grab Rial's hand. And then she goes back into the dream when she's sitting in the classroom and says, "Oh, I have to go back home." And then pushes the girl's hand away and basically kills the witch doctor.
Yeah.
which was, I mean, that was a good ending. I didn't expect that one at all because I thought she was going to basically, oh, sorry, Bo. You know,
Sorry, Bo.
yeah,
See ya.
take the daughter, go back to Sudan. I can give her back to her mom. You don't even know her mom was still alive.
Right. You
But
know,
yeah,
and I
that
mean,
was-
again, almost half an arm up in Bull's arm. I'm like, all right, this is it. He's done. But it's great. They twisted expectations yet again with the film. So
yeah, this film was. I mean, you got any more last thoughts on this one at all?
I think the best part is when they like, not the best part, but a great part is when there's sort of like caseworker shows up again at the very end. And you know, it's clear they're trying to like fix up the place and everything, and they're basically just like, yeah, we just learned to kind of accept like our monsters, our demons and stuff, and move on with it. It's a great way to say like, yeah, we did some bad shit in the past, but we, you know, if we want to keep on living, we got to move past it, and we've chose to move past it, or at the very least live with the fact that we know what we've done. But you know, you can never fully let go of it, but you can't let it get in the way of you living your life.
Yeah,
So,
I love the line he said too when he was talking about the ghost. And then when they're leaving, they're staying in the room with all the ghosts. Now, here's the question: you think all those ghosts? I mean, you see Neok there, but you think all those ghosts were not only the people that were on the boats, but the people who actually had that house before? Because that was the interesting thing, the way that they showed that. I mean,
that would be an interesting thing too. To like, I think it would cheapen it if they did like a sequel or a prequel or anything like that. It's perfect as it is. Just leave it like that. But that'd be an interesting thing to explore if they were to go that route. Just like do a prequel of like, maybe these were other people who lived in the house and couldn't overcome what they had done. What they had seen. I think that would be interesting. Honestly, I didn't think about it in the moment. I was just kind of like so swept up in like, oh, I was so happy that Bowl and Rail were like, oh, they're moving past it. They're finally kind of adapting as best as they can to the situation, because it's still not good. No. And when you think about it, it's still a bleak ending.
It is.
It's still super bleak. I mean, they're alive, but how much longer are they? What kind of life are they going to have? You know?
Yeah, because they're being investigated, so you don't even know if they got sent back.
Right.
Because they were still being investigated. But I love that scene because they're there holding hands, and then you see Neok like standing at the end of the hallway. Then all of a sudden you see them surrounded with a bunch of people. And then you see her surrounded by a bunch of people. Then it goes back to them and they're holding hands by themselves. Great way to end the movie. That was like the perfect ending.
They stuck it. They stuck the landing.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Now, here's the thing. This film was the first ever 5 I gave on 3 Corners of Horror. And if you watch 3 Corners of Horror, a 5 is a very hard great rating that I give any film. And this was the first one. I mean, this film is one I think is definitely a hidden gem, because we get so much horror movies that have to do with something in the home, and the fact that it's always either they opened something, they found something, or but not one that was brought in by the guilt that they had the whole time. And the way it was executed was just, the acting was tremendous, cinematography amazing, the creature effects freaking awesome.
Fantastic.
I mean, I don't find many flaws in this film at all. I thought this film was probably one of the most perfectly done films I've ever watched.
I don't know if I would say perfect, but it is just so darn well done. Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's definitely at the pinnacle of this subgenre of horror, of like haunted house, because it's just done so much better than the others. And I think it's because it just has a different feel from its predecessors. It does something completely different. And it does not get talked about enough. It is like a real hidden gem. I don't hear anyone talking about this except for like maybe every 4 or 5 months, which is criminal.
Yes.
Criminal, people. Yes. What are you doing?
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it. Still playing on Netflix. It's only an hour and 30 minutes. It's not a long film. it's slow in certain parts, but understand the parts is slow is for a reason to get more in depth on these two characters. Their plight was just tragic. Everything they went through was horrific, and the way they're treated ain't any better. But it kind of gives you an understanding how some of these asylum seekers what they go through, and you know, seeing it from their point of view was actually pretty amazing.
For sure.
That being said, what film should we do next?
You know, I'm thinking since we took a nice little turn with this one, got a little different culture. I think it's time to do something maybe a little closer to home, but also still wildly different from the norm. And I think the house that Jack built does that perfectly. Such a it's an interesting watch for sure.
Very interesting. If you watch it, drink some coffee because you're gonna need it throughout this film. I mean, it's one that you're watching, you're like, what? And then it has interesting points, has some shocking, but it's definitely a film worth talking about, especially on this show for sure.
Oh, heck yeah.
So yeah, any final thoughts before we close it out, buddy?
None that I can think of, except please, please, please. If you haven't seen it, go watch His House. It's incredible.
Yes, I agree. 1,000% watch it. Like I said, my first 5. Find out why I rated it 5. I mean, we said as much as we could say on this one, but it's always the best thing to do is watch the film because while we gave certain spoilers, we did not go too in depth with a lot of the stuff that you should watch. But yeah, definitely watch it. His House, good film, Netflix. So this is GR with my boy Radar.
Is our house on your radar?
We definitely would like to see that. But yes, so watch it next time. Watch this film. The house that Jack built is the next one, and we are out on this one. Peace.